Why does Jeb always have to win the card game when we're on screen? But I'll just remind everybody that I beat him at Netrunner.
Yes, he never lets me live that down.
On camera. I'm
going to take that video down.
Nope. It's my highlight of my gaming career. Okay, so anyways, we're back with the Lightseeker review, as you saw.
That game was pretty quick.
That was, I think it's, we've played longer ones, but, and we're really getting the hang of it now too. So.
It's not a game that's drawn out, I guess is what I was going for.
Although it can be just like any of the other ones.
Especially when learning, right?
Right, and, I mean, you could have been doing all that damage, and I could have just been heal, and then we go longer. Anyways, hopefully you got to see the mechanics that maybe you didn't understand when we were trying to describe it.
Right.
Sometimes I find like it's hard to keep stuff in order, and a lot of times we do, even though, I mean, we have an outline. So, some of the stuff, I won't say it's on the fly, but when you start talking about it, it's like...
Some things reference other things that you haven't gotten to yet.
Right. So anyways, again, if you're watching the review, you want to know about the game, and you don't want to watch, or, maybe the explanation was boring you, go back. Shoot, I think that game might only been 15 minutes. You probably watch the whole thing, and you get a really good idea of how...
Yeah, we probably talked more about how the rules work than
the actual game. So I'm gonna start with Jeb's opinion of this tonight, and you guys you'll have to listen to me talk a lot later. But
so this is the time that I get to talk.
We're gonna let Jeb talk first, and the reason that Jeb's gonna talk first is because I was the one that kept harping on him to try this game because I thought it was a I think it's a contender TCG in my opinion. I think it's pretty good.
Okay. So my talk?
Yes.
Alright, so Mickey played this at Origins. I got to play that at a con I don't know what, three months ago or something. And when I actually sat down, because Mickey had talked about it after he played it, and I was like, okay, it's a TCG. I'm at this point where I don't want to get into TCGs just because I don't want to spend money on it. I spend money on other stuff, like board games. But I didn't want to funnel money towards a TCG. So I was just kind of like, okay, he likes it. I'm not going to get into it. And then I was at this convention and I had time and I saw the Lightseekers booth there and they were doing the demos like they did at Origins. So I was like, okay, I'll sit down and learn it. So when I was watching, I was like, oh, I remember Mickey talking about the rotating cards, and I thought that was really cool. That's one of the things that I really like is the buffs, that how they rotate, they do stuff on, it might be instantly when you play it, might be 3 turns down the road, and they all kind of vary and when they go off and stuff like that. So I really like that aspect. And then after I played it at a convention, I sent Mickey a picture of me playing it, and he was like, okay, we got to do an episode. So I was like, yeah.
Well, first I said, do you think you liked it? Because then I was going to be sad if he said, no.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, I don't think he was convinced yet.
I wasn't convinced
I think he said it was okay because...
When I was learning, the guy teaching me, it was actually his first time teaching a game of it. So I was like, well... I don't have the whole picture, and I didn't read the rule book at that point, so I'm like, I'm just going with whatever.
Right.
So I came back, read the rule book, me and Mickey opened up all the decks, we played, I don't know, what, 7, 8 matches, different combinations, getting a feel of all the different decks, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's a fun game. And then he talked about the beta testing on the thing, and he was like, here's who you got to send an email to get in on that. So
and then they go live right after I send you the thing. I get an email that says you're live, and they made it sound like it was going to be a couple more weeks or something. And I'm like, well, whatever, you can just go download it. But that's besides the point.
But yeah, I do think it's. I mean, the other TCGs have all their history, and they usually have TV shows and stuff with them. Not Magic. I don't think they ever did anything like that.
No, but that's the granddaddy, so
yeah, so
they don't need to.
So Lightseekers is kind of the new guy in town, trying to get on their feet and whatever. They do like when we first saw it, we were like, oh, it's like Skylanders. So they do have like a Skylander type thing with figures and scanning cards and all that stuff. I'm not into that. When Skylanders came out, I was like, whatever. Like that just feels not my alley. So when I saw that with Lightseekers, I was like, I don't really care about it. But then I found out the card game is like completely separate. Like you don't have to do one if you want to do the other. So I do enjoy the card game, and I will probably stop talking because Mickey's going to talk even longer than I did.
Okay. So, pretty much everything Jeb said. My first exposure to the game was at Origins last year.
Yep.
So Jeb was off doing something else, and I walked by it. Like Jeb just said, the art's attractive if you like cartoony type of art, but it really, really does look like Skylanders. So when I'm walking by the table and they grabbed me and said to you, because I was kind of hovering a little bit looking at it. I was like, it's kind of neat looking, but there can't possibly be a game with it because I did know enough to know that they were trying to do the toys, and every single card in your deck is scannable. Which is good for the online thing. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Like, if you scan it once, can you give it to a buddy and they can scan it? I have no clue. I did scan a card. It worked. So that part seems to work good. But, like Jeb said, honestly, I would have rather seen him go straight for... just try to build a community with the cards. And the reason I say that is because honestly, I think if the toys did catch on, which I don't know how they're gonna now without Toys R Us, but let's say that they did, I still think you're talking about a fad with the toys. It's gonna maybe it stays around for a few years, but if it gets hot, it's gonna get hot for a Christmas, and then it's gonna taper off.
Well, that's like Skylanders, right? Because
they're still doing them, and the kids still play it, but it's not like...
But, there was a time where
and they were all
and
eBay's prices were ridiculous and all that kind of thing. And not that it's necessarily bad. I just feel like if you can get a solid player base, I feel like you could last a little bit longer. Now, that being said, we all know how difficult it is to keep a collectible card game relevant. The things that I like about the game, Jeb touched on one of the major ones, which is the buffs. I don't know how many. Jeb's played Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think there's anything exactly like that in Yu-Gi-Oh!
They changed that.
Magic has its own things. I don't know of anything that, I know that there's cards that tick down or tick up. With counters and things like that, so you could say that that's kind of similar. Pokemon, no. So I feel like he said, just the way that you can, you see that thing come out, and then all of a sudden you got a plan for it, on the other side of the field. Like, oh, if that thing ticks all the way around, or even if it's instant, or like I got a card in my hand and I'm ready to play, and then they drop something that's a defense, and now I'm like, well, there went my plan. So when those are out, I feel like it's like every time a buff comes out, I feel like your strategy changes a little bit in the game, which is really cool.
Well, even like you playing a buff, sometimes you have to plan like 2 turns ahead to be able to get the benefit of that buff.
Yep.
So there's thinking involved.
Yep. And the other thing that I really liked about the game is I really enjoyed the having to manage your draw in the game.
Yeah.
Because there is no, again, I said it before, there is no automatic draw. So you have to take a turn, not draw anything,
Leave yourself
build,
open.
put enough buffs in your deck. There are buffs that, as they spin, you get to draw cards.
Yep.
So you can rely on that as long as your opponent doesn't get rid of that buff. So you can incorporate that kind of stuff into your deck. But the point is, if it's taken me a while to dig that out of my deck, I might have to take a turn and just draw, and then your opponent has a whole turn to set up also. So I thought that was really cool. And then you can decide, well, maybe I'll just play one card and see what I get up top here. Yep. You actually got to see 2 heroes out of the starters that actually had draw abilities. I don't believe any of the other ones do.
There's one that I don't know if it's a starter, but
no, that's what I know. I didn't mean. I'm talking about just starters.
I don't remember what the green starter is, but I know there's a green guy who's draw 2, your opponent heals 2. I can't remember. If
maybe that was the starter. Regardless, there are heroes that have the abilities. So you saw 2 heroes with ability. There are also heroes, the Astral one being one of them, that has a trigger effect. It has no ability, so it just has a trigger effect when it happens, which is one of those things that you need to pay attention to. I mentioned in the introduction that I have seen some comparisons to Hearthstone on it, and I can see I can see why, because Hearthstone, you have your wizard or whatever hero you have, and you're fighting another one. They could be different or whatever, and then they're dropping cards out that, again, they could have lingering effects. They could get defense. They can do healing. But Hearthstone can get pretty, since the computer's keeping track of everything, they can get pretty crazy with everything they do. I feel like this game kind of gives the same feel, but keeps it so that you can manage everything pretty easily, especially with everything right in front of you. You can do the math. You can see what's happening. It doesn't. So far, I haven't seen anything too crazy. That doesn't mean that people haven't busted the system that we haven't seen, because we're still relatively new to it. I also like the cap on the healing. So there's none of this. I mean, I don't care what kind of deck you build. The only thing you're going to do is keep it at 35. Yeah. so you're not going to be able to pull off any of this stuff where it's like, I have 100 health and now what are you going to do? So I like that part of it. And honestly, I like the art, but I didn't expect much of a game because of, like we already talked about, the Skylander type of thing. I feel like they could go with more factions. Speaking of factions, you saw one of the items. You can mix the colors because a lot of the items actually add an element. So if I attach a blue item that has a blue symbol to my hero, then all of the sudden
they can play the blue cards.
They can play the blue cards of that element. We haven't tried any of that, but the point is, you can start mixing the factions together, and
we've also seen heroes.
Yeah, multicolored heroes. I feel like I honestly feel like they are on to something rock solid here that could have been, because it plays in the time frame of the other ones. Yu-Gi-Oh can play quick, Pokemon can play quick, Magic can play quick. I mean, what I mean by play quick is that in a tournament setting, if you put a half an hour on it, most likely there's going to be a winner.
Right.
In some aspect. And then I don't know what the official tournament rules, because I didn't look at them yet, but I'm sure that they have tiebreakers, and maybe it's just whoever's got the most health or cards in deck. I don't know. I'm just saying that, just thinking through my head, that it fits all that stuff well.
Yeah. And with all the, like you were mentioning, the heroes that mix, there's a lot of stuff that TCGs use to be able to continue putting out sets to support, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff in here that can keep getting support.
Yep.
So I mean, it's got to be at least 2 or 3 years worth of product they could put out that would make new stuff in support the stuff that's in the game, and they don't have to actually bring in more new mechanics.
I agree.
So
I mean, I don't know if they have them already or not. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't even put a cost on a. Right now all we've seen is if it has a dual cost, it's always a combo.
Yeah.
There isn't a reason why they couldn't put like maybe your superior one and a lesser one on the same card, make it a regular, but it burned that one other element for your second card to play.
What I was thinking was like a regular action having dual symbols, but because it's better like in that sense than a regular action card, it would have a negative effect. So like when you use it for a combo, then maybe you take like 2 damage, but it's a regular card that I don't know. You can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the point is, I think like I've been trying to point out that I think that it's. I just think that it's solid. I wasn't expecting it. I was. Jeb and I have played. We haven't done any reviews on them, but we played some of the Japanese TCG ones, and although we've learned a couple of them and liked them, they're difficult. Their cards, it's like reading a book when you're reading their abilities, and until you get really used to the terminology, it's a bear. I thought this was really easy to pick up, and the cards are clear too. I like the way they put bold things to make you key in on it. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to, if you don't understand it, also to be like, okay, let me just dive into the rules real quick, look it up, and go, there has been some things that Jeb and I went back and forth and debated on, and most, I would say, 98% right now we've found, maybe we're teetering on a couple things, but, they're the oddities that, like, oh, wait a second, I wasn't expecting this to happen, now what do you do? I will also say that this is one of the most comprehensive rules that I've seen. Most of them don't, like, this covers almost any situation.
And it's very easy to navigate that too.
Yep.
I do like how they did that because I've read tons of rules.
And
that it borders between like a rule book and a cheat sheet. So.
The front gets you playing.
Yeah.
That's all the detailed stuff. Order of operations and stuff like that when things trigger and all that. So
you could actually play the game by just looking at the front.
Right.
When you have questions, look at the back.
Yep.
And you'll get answers. So.
Yeah. So there was probably a ton more that I wanted to say, but I think you can tell by the way that I'm hyping it that I thought they did a really good job, and I like it. And as a matter of fact, back to our friends at Toys R Us, I picked up like 15 packs when they were going out of business for $1, and I'm like, oh, I hope, I know that they're,
each.
Yeah, $1 each, and then, that would have been a really good deal. I know the first expansion is out. I don't know if the second one is or not. The other, I guess, hard part about it is I know Tommy's the distributor here. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure, I think the game is originated in England though. Mm-hmm. So the base is not as big here. Like, as a matter of fact, since I saw the game, I've walked into one store that had a box on the shelf, and I was like, can I have some Lightseeker packs? And he was like, oh, that's empty. And he was like, you play? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, oh, I've been trying to build seriously, right. I think the people that have tried it, that play other games, are like, this is a solid game. It's fun. It's one of those, all I can say is try it.
Yeah, definitely.
I would try it. I mean, again, I don't think this guy's going to go out and buy anything right yet, and, unless we opened our own store, then he would probably build a deck.
Yeah, so I get able to
so he could play. But if I build decks, he would probably be like, okay, I'll play. And I would.
Even in the mindset of me not wanting to buy cards, when I looked at all the cards Mickey had bought and opened in the packs, I was like, oh, I could make a deck like this.
Yeah,
and that.
He did.
So I'm already strategizing.
He's like Mr. Dread deck over here. Yeah. He's like, oh, these purple ones are so cool.
Yeah.
So anyways, I won't keep rambling, but if you get a chance, if you're a convention goer or whatever, and you see a display of it, I would highly encourage you, if you like the card games. And I realize that, a lot of people are sick of the collectible card game thing
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But if you want just something on your shelf that you could try out,
We've
some
just
of
been
the
playing with like the basic
starter
decks, and we've been
decks,
having
yeah,
fun.
it's
Like we haven't gotten
fun.
tired of it yet.
yeah, that's another thing. I would say the basic decks are actually they're fairly fun to play with. Like I don't like the Pokemon starter decks. I think these are more comparable with. Well, I won't say. I think Magic does a pretty good job of. They have some that are actually on the border of competitive, not high competitive, but competitive. But these, you get a feel for the game. You don't. I don't think that you go totally dead with like particularly Pokemon. My son plays Pokemon. If I've never said that before, so I know a lot about it. He played it. I played it. We know a lot about it. So, you don't have that aspect. And there are also, which I bought. Can I have that, Jim?
This?
Yeah. So this is a single one, and I know they have dual ones with one of each faction. So basically, two of these, and you could, 2 players ready to go right out the bat. And as I said before, you can go online and search in the App Store for Lightseekers and play the card game on there. I played it pretty extensively, except for the deck building part, and that's why I can't beat anybody online because I just get demolished. I came close a couple times, and then they just, you're dead, and I'm like, oh, I guess I should really try to build a deck because I got a bunch of cards that I could actually scan and build a deck instead of trying to wait until I get packs online. But I didn't see any flaws with it. I'm sure that people that really hammered it even harder than I did probably found some little tweaks and stuff like that. But it worked really smooth right out the gate. Even when I played online opponents, it was, it was fine. So there's another way you can even, go out and try it, and maybe that makes even more sense than in my explanations or his explanations or whatever. So anyways, for real, I'll start babbling this time.
All right.
Things to remember, Jeb?
I was gonna say things you don't like.
Oh, things I don't like. It's TCG.
Yeah.
That's really about the only thing I didn't like about this game. If there was a league around, I'd play in it.
Yeah. I was gonna say that it's like you mentioned, like you walked into one store and was able to find it aside from Toys R Us. Like I've only seen it in person in like the conventions where they're teaching it. So,
like I said, I don't know if that has to do with the whole being out of England thing. I don't know if it's more popular over there.
So I guess finding
in
it
the
is
UK
one thing that I'm like,
right, and so maybe with them going out of business, they're looking for other people to do it. If Jeb tags the company and you need a rep.
We'll do something.
I like it. So
the only other thing, we've only played starter deck heroes. Out of all the matches we played, I did notice the ones that have the draw power tend to be like at a little bit more of an advantage. I don't know if in like a tournament setting if that's still true or not, but the draw power seems to be very important in this game since there's no inherent drawing.
Right.
So I feel like decks, if they have that inherent ability that they have access to every turn, like it kind of is a little better. But I mean, like I said,
that's typical of any game.
Yeah. There's always there's something that's going to be like really
mechanic.
good.
So if you don't have the built-in draw power, you better have some buffs that draw some cards for you or whatever.
And the good thing about that is there's 3 heroes I think that I know of off the top of my head that have draw power. So it's not just one faction's always going to be like run away with draw power.
Is that your thing to remember?
No, my thing to remember is...
so that was just a tangent?
Yeah, so
excellent.
Let's get to things to remember.
This guy.
The thing I messed up is the buff. I always forget to do my buff phase at the beginning of my turn because I'm always like, okay, play 2 cards.
Yep.
Yeah, and that, if you would watch the gameplay, if I had done my buff phase, I would have beat Mickey sooner or realized I had won sooner.
Yep, that's true. And I should have caught that too.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The the buff phase is something unique to get used to. It's almost like it's almost the same as almost the start of the turn thing. Although some of the cards could actually say start of the turn. So
you just kind of have to get in the habit.
Yeah, if you can get into the habit of buff phase, and then move on to the play phase. The other thing that
is it what I'm gonna say?
I don't know. Go ahead.
The elements that you're
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Expertise elements or whatever. Because during our match, I was looking and like after 3 turns, I was like, wait a second, I forgot I can only play doubles of one element. And I was trying to figure out if I did that, and luckily I didn't mess anything up. But
yeah, I didn't see him mess anything up this game either. But we know for a fact that we've messed it up
multiple times
in the past. So so both yourself and your opponent always try to make sure, like, look at the card your opponent plays. Remember what their first card is. Make sure they don't play one that they're not supposed to play later on.
And I feel like the computer game would actually keep track of that better for you.
Oh, it does. It won't let you play.
Yeah,
you can't do that. As a
matter
of fact, your hand is always highlighed with the cards that you can play while you're playing on the computer.
That's usually how it goes because it's all programmed.
That's exactly the other main, other than the buff phase, the other main thing is keeping track of the elements that you've already played.
Yep.
The plus side of that is that because you only have the 2 actions, it's relatively easy to keep track of. And there are some cards that add 1 more action. So okay.
But that took forever for me to get that one out.
But my point is, there's not you're not gonna end. You're probably not gonna end up with 5 turns or whatever, and then and then you're gonna be like, well, what did I already play, and now I can't, and all that. So the only other thing I would say is that I think it takes a little bit of time to get used to when you have an ability on the field. Or at least feel like that was for you at least a little bit. Like having a card that has an ability thinking that that's actually, wait a second, that's an action I can actually use right now.
Right. That's one thing I'd have forgotten in previous matches.
So remember that if you drop a card that says attack ability or defend ability, that's in play until it goes away, as the same as having ability on your hero. Because again, some of the heroes don't have abilities, so there's a good chance that they might have abilities in their deck, and once it's in play, you can use it as an action. So, and as far as I know, it's good to use as soon as it comes in. I don't think there's any
I don't remember any restrictions.
Summoning sickness or whatever on them. So other than that, again, what we gave really 2 major things that we to keep an eye on.
Yep.
So there's not even a whole lot that you need to, other than, make sure you take your damage and all that kind of stuff, but that's normal. Yeah. So if you forget to do that, oops.
Yeah. And I know there is drawing a card the turn you play a combo. You may forget that, but with how limited card drawing is, that's one thing we always remember is like play a combo, draw a card. So
yeah, because you're always thinking at the end of your, once you get used to the whole draw at the end of your turn, you're always thinking, am I allowed to draw this time?
Especially when you just dump like 5 cards out of your hand.
Yeah, and you're holding 2, and you're like, do I get to draw? And you're like, no, you have to wait till your next turn and blow a whole turn drawing cards. Anyways.
Yep. We both liked it.
Yep. Me probably even more than Jeb. So hopefully you guys can either try it online, or if you can find it in person, highly recommend it, and subscribe and tweet and do your thing, Jeb.
Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please check out our other ones. We've got plenty of episodes out now. We're putting more out. Leave any comments, questions, concerns.
Tip in the coffee cup.
Yeah, we have a coffee that I think is in the link. I usually put them in the link. So if you want to support us, that's how you can do that. Any game recommendations, we're all ears for that. But other than that, I think that's everything. So
I think so.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.
Boards and booze and boards with Mickey and Jeb.